Alright. This is extremely janky at the moment. I have a lot of work to do to get this to work right, but this is all just like temporary code at the moment. But, look at this. So this is all janky, obviously. Right, so this is all working. I can show the editors. Okay, so look, last night I ran into a big problem, which was that I found that as soon as I was with some of these clap plugins, when I was showing the editor or attempting to show the editor, the graphics driver would just crash. And luckily, I spent about 9 years of my life working in the graphics industry, but I didn't spend that time doing any kind of like real graphics work. Instead, what I spent my time doing was just knowing about the nitty gritty technical details of OpenGL. And so because I spent so much time doing that, I was able to like immediately suss out what the problem was. And the problem is Blockhead is implemented using the Godot game engine. And so all of the rendering is done using OpenGL. And so there's this thing called an OpenGL context. And some of these plugins also do their rendering with OpenGL. So they create their own OpenGL context. The all of the like UI interaction with the plugin has to happen in the main thread of the application. So it's going to be the same thread for these two OpenGL contexts. So at the end of the day, you have a situation where you have the host is trying to do its OpenGL rendering in one thread, and the plugin is trying to do its own OpenGL rendering in the same thread. And that is okay as long as you perform an explicit context switch to make sure that the correct context is bound to the current thread before you do any rendering on that context. If you don't do that, then the graphics driver is most likely going to crash. So I realized that was happening. I think it is basically it's extremely typical that at the beginning of every UI frame, an audio plugin is basically always going to do an explicit like context switch to make sure that its own rendering context is bound to the thread. Whereas Godot, the game engine, is not doing that because it's making the very sensible assumption that you're not launching VST plugins or clap plugins or doing anything where you're linking in a shared library which is doing its own OpenGL rendering. Basically, I've made it about 4 years now without having any need to fork Godot and modify it. But now I'm at the point where I have no choice, and so I've created a fork of Godot, and I've added the thing that I need to add, which is if I can find it. I have it open here. So I've added this to the beginning of this function. This is my one change that I've made. So I'm now using my own custom build of Godot. So I need to build this on macOS and Linux as well to make sure it's working there. It should be fine, I think. Okay, so the other problem is that I need to create like an OS level window to put the plugin editor inside of. So that's what this thing is. And that's really tedious. I really don't want to do that. So I was basically looking for a library that does it for me. And the best thing that I managed to find was this library here. In fact, it's literally the only library that I've managed to find that does what I want. But it actually doesn't do what I want. It's not good enough at the moment. So I'm also going to have to fork this library and make a bunch of modifications to it so that it does what I want. The thing that it doesn't do is, for some reason, there's no consistent interface between the different platforms. So basically, it exposes like a depending on what platform you're on, it will expose a different version of this window class. So I'm on Windows at the moment, so it has this window class defined, but like the X11 version of this class looks like this, and the Mac OS version of the class looks like this. So on Windows, I'm developing Windows at the moment, and luckily the Windows version of this class has this function to get the native window handle, which is very important. But the X11 and the Cocoa versions don't actually have anything like that. So I'm going to have to modify this library to expose the interface that I need on these other platforms. There's also seems like there's no other interface for, like the Windows interface has a lot of stuff. It has like the ability to set size and set position and all this stuff. But these other platforms don't have that for some reason. Maybe there's a reason why there's no consistent interface between platforms. I don't know. But yeah, this is the best library I found to just pop up an OS window to use. I just can't be bothered to write the code myself. It'd be really annoying to do. But even then, I still need to support this and modify it. Anyway, so that's where I'm at the moment. And every time I want to use a different plugin, I have to restart Blockhead at the moment because it's all hacked together and temporary. But these other plugins, everything seems to be working. Is this one? Alright, so there we go. That's where I'm at the moment.